Hey everybody, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com, and today I've got a product review for you. I try to do reviews of products that I actually use. What a concept, and products that I think are really helpful for a home studio owner. And today we're looking at the SSL collection plugin bundle from Waves. This is an awesome plugin bundle. I have been using these plugs for about a year and a half now. I demoed them on a mix a year and a half ago. Mixed through them. You get like a 2-week demo, which is a great way to test out plugins, by the way. It's absolutely free. Do a real mix on it. Do it when you've got a project to work on, real life project, and then you can put it through its paces. I mixed an album through it, loved it, and that's what they want you to do. They want you to love it. And then I bought it. Well, a year and a half later, I've been using it, and some of you guys have seen it in some of my tutorials and asked, hey, could you do a review? Could you at least show how you're using it, kind of go over the plugs? And here it is. Take a listen real quick. I've just got a little mix I'm working on using tons of these SSL plugins, and then I'm just going to quickly overview what they do, how I'm using them in my sessions, and give you the final ultimatum of whether or not it's a plugin bundle you should get. All right, so something fun, something gritty, and I love these plugins, and they're working great on this mix. Now, here's the big deal. The SSL collection is modeling the SSL 4000 console's EQ dynamics, sort of that channel strip processing, obviously. And you're also getting a standalone EQ, and you're getting the famed master bus compressor. Real quick, here's the overview of what the plugs do, how I'm using them, and why I like them, and whether or not you should get them. The main plug that I'm using is the E-channel channel strip. This is pretty much what you're going for, because this is going to be what you can insert on all your tracks if you want to. It's going to give you high pass, low pass, and full range EQ, right? Which is, again, EQ is your main mixing tool, and it's a great sounding EQ. You're also going to get a compressor up at the top right, a gate and expander, and then phase reverse and a channel sort of fader that you can actually mix with. This could actually be the fader of your track. You could leave all your tracks at unity in your DAW in theory and sort of mix volume with this, which is kind of cool. Now, this needs to be said because I used to mix through this wrong. I did not realize the actual signal path of this plugin, so keep this in mind because I made this mistake. By default, your plugin's going to look like this. And the signal path is audio goes through the plugin and it hits your dynamic section first. Then it hits your filters, then it hits your EQ, or the other way around. It's going to hit filters and EQ after your dynamics. Now that's an interesting point to note, because if you're like me and you prefer to EQ first, cut out frequencies, remove stuff, high pass, then I like to compress what's left. And in theory, that's what I thought was happening, because just visually looking at it, I just assume left to right, top to bottom. I just thought filters and EQ, then dynamics. That is not how it's default set up. There is a button here on the dynamics to channel out. If that makes sense, that means dynamics will then hit the channel output immediately, which means dynamics are second to last, which means your EQ is going to come before your compressor. That's the way I mix. So when I pull up the SSL channel, I'm going to throw that button in, and I'm going to hit the split button, which allows my high pass to happen before my EQ, and then before my compressor and gate and output. Just keep that in mind, because for 6 months or so, I probably mixed 2 or 3 albums not realizing that I was hitting my compressor before my EQ and thinking the opposite. So it helps to read the manual. Go figure. Try it next time. So the E channel is awesome. If you're familiar with an SSL console, you're gonna love it. We used to mix on one at the studio I worked at for about 6 months. It had just an SSL 4000. That was the only thing they mixed through, and all us interns had to work on it, learn it, and it was so scary to me back in the day. But now this is really familiar because of that, and it's great for you people that are used to that and you want to see a knob and just turn the knob. Now, if you're not familiar with the SSL console, it doesn't matter. You'll find this challenging to work with because there's no visual indicators like maybe the Avid, EQ3 or any of your other DAWs EQs where you can literally grab them and push up the frequencies or cut it down or whatever, and you see what you're doing. But again, like I've written on the blog, there's something to not being able to see your audio. Just dial a knob and actually listen to it. You might find that you make better mixing decisions. I throw this on every channel and mix through this because it's my EQ, it's my compressor, it's my gate, it's my phase reverse. I'm good to go. And it sounds really, really good. There's something musical about the EQ. If you boost frequencies, I find it sounds better sometimes than when I boost on more digital EQs. I don't do a lot of boosting anyway, but there's something to be said about boosting on this SSL channel strip. Okay, now keep in mind, there is another channel strip as well. There is the G channel. So over here, they didn't used to include this, but now they do. So you actually get two channel strips. Now this is almost the exact same thing. It's just another EQ compressor pulled from an SSL, but it's from the G series, not the E series, and it does sound different. Which one should you use? Don't ask questions like that. Experiment and determine for yourself. The G channel definitely has a potentially grittier sound. You could think G for gritty. I've heard someone say that. It's kind of true. It has a more colored sound to it. And you might find that this alone just sounds better on certain tracks. It might be better for vocals or rock vocals. It might be better for drums. The great thing is if you buy this bundle, you get both. So why not try one, bring in and dial in the EQ and compression, try the other, the E channel, and then you can bypass and listen back and see if one does something nice to your track over the other. So you really get in two different sounding plugins or channel strips in one bundle, which is awesome. Main differences here are there's no bell button like in the E channel. Where is it here? Let's open up both. In the E channel on the EQ, you've got a bell button which turns these shelves by default into bell curves, which is nice. On the G channel, these are not bells. Instead, they affect the frequency knobs on the two mid channels. So you can have more fine-tune what frequency you need on the low mid and the high mid, which is kind of cool. Other than that, they are identical and then they just sound different. Now you've got a standalone EQ up here, the G EQ, which is literally the EQ section ripped from the G series. So you're going to see the same effect buttons here. And again, this is a great sounding musical EQ. So I'll use this on buses, maybe my drum bus. I'll boost the little shelf here to get some sweetness on the cymbals. This is great on your mix bus also if you want to do a little bit of mix bus EQ. It's a standalone. You don't need the compressor. Just throw this guy on there. It sounds great, but it's just the same EQ from the G series channel strip. And then, of course, considered maybe the crown jewel of the plugin bundle, you've got the master bus compressor. This is sort of that sought after mix bus compression, and it is great in your DAW on your mix bus. So I have it on my master fader here. You can see it bouncing around. And it's just doing a little bit of compression. It's perfect for that kind of thing. It's got your standard threshold, makeup, gain, attack, release, including an auto release, which is nice, so it can set the release based off of the sort of the timing of the audio coming into it. And then it's got some really helpful ratios. Really low ratio, like 2:1, which is probably more recommended for mix bus compression. I've got it on 4:1 because this is more of an aggressive rock mix. And then if you want some more heavy limiting type compression, you've got 10:1. So really they've picked usable ratio settings. And it's as simple as that. You've got a big old meter just to look at your gain reduction and see what kind of damage you're doing. And the great thing about the master bus compressor here is that it sounds really musical. And what I love about this, I honestly demoed the plugin bundle just for this guy because I slap it on my mix bus and you start mixing through it from the beginning, and it seems to make my drums pop out of the mix a little bit more with it on. It's funny what it does to transient heavy things like kick and snare drum just by having it on your mix bus. You could even put it on your drum bus if you wanted and really just squeeze out some juice from your drums. It's a very musical compressor, and there's a reason why it's sort of beloved in mixing circles. It just sounds great and it's a lot of fun to use. So how I like to mix with these is really I'll put a SSL channel on almost every track, and potentially you could put the G channel on there if you want a different sound. And this will be my EQ and compression, and that's the most of what I use. If you want a little bit of saturation, you could slap something like that on afterwards. Obviously reverbs and delays I'll put on my bus tracks here. But I'll mix almost entirely with the SSL. And then on my mix bus, I will have the SSL comp, and sometimes I'll throw the GEQ on buses like my background vocals or here on my drums. I've got it here, and on my parallel compression drums. It is a plug-in bundle that gives you pretty much everything you need to mix. Now, the money question. Do you need it? Is it worth the money? And what will it do for you if you already have, other plugins? Well, here's the thing. Do you need the SSL plugin bundle to make a great mix? No, you don't. In fact, if you aren't making great mixes already and you're asking questions like, oh, Graham, my mixes aren't where I want them to be. Maybe the SSL bundle is the solution. Should I get that? Maybe it'll kind of take my mixes to the next level. I would caution you to sort of re-question where you're looking for your answers. If your mixes aren't up to snuff, it's not the plugins that you're using, okay? Go watch my video on mixing with stock plugins. I'm a huge advocate of mixing with stock plugins because they are good. They are all you need. And if you can't get a good mix with them, it shows less of a quality issue with your plugins and more of an experience issue with your mixing. You need to go back and mix more. Get more experience, get more practice, keep getting training, and just get your hands dirty with mixing. Then you'll start to get better mixes and you'll really enjoy what you're doing with your stock plugins. Now, if you're doing this professionally, or if you're starting to make some money on the side, recording, mixing some bands in your town, which I highly recommend, by the way, and you're starting to bring in some cash, you might be thinking, how can I reinvest this money into my studio? It's a great way to pick up some extra microphones or some extra headphones that you need in your studio, whatever you might need for your recording gigs. If you're looking to invest in plugins, they're not that many that I think you need. I've reviewed a couple. I really like the Slate Digital plugins, but I really like the SSL bundle because it sounds great, it sounds musical, and it does something sweet to your tracks that's real subtle. And it's really fun to mix on. So if you just want a change of pace and you want to just grab a knob and turn it, there's something to be said about not having any visual cues other than what you would have on a console to make you listen and to have that experience that you're mixing on a console. And I will say the bus compressor by itself is worth the price of admission. I think it sounds amazing, and I don't mix through anything else at this point because I'm so used to how quickly I can get a great sound with that bus compressor. There is something great about it. There's a reason why people like it. Now, it's a relatively expensive bundle, but I think for the home studio user that is doing their first or second paid mixing or recording gig, you should be able to bring in some cash to pick something like this up. It's a good investment. If you're just doing this for fun or you're just getting started, it's not worth the money. You won't see your return on your investment. Just stick with your stock plugs and get better at mixing. Seriously, I've used the Avid Digi Pro Tools plugins for years and have mixed for clients. I was getting paid mixing using stock plugins for years and years and years. I still use mostly stock plugins, and then I've incorporated the SSL bundle to my workflow, and I really, really like it. But I brought this in once I was doing this for a living. So it's something to consider. But I know a lot of home studio users out there want to get more of that analog console feel, and this bundle is a great way to sort of up the ante in your mixes. Hope that helps, guys. It gives you an idea of how I'm using the SSL plugin bundle from Waves in my DAW and Pro Tools. And again, you can get this in RTAS for Pro Tools. You can get this in audio units. It's pretty much for any DAW you're using out there. You can get the Waves bundle. Check out the demo on your next mix, see if it's worth it for you. Hope that helps. Again, this is Graham at therecordingrevolution.com. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if this is a channel that's helping you. Leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts if you're using the SSL bundle yourself. And I hope to see you on the blog, on Twitter, on Facebook, and definitely on a video in the near future. Take care.